Hi, this is Claudia Filos with the Center for Hellenic Studies, and we're here today with some of our colleagues, so Allie Marbry, Douglas Frame, Gregory Nagy, and Leonard Muellner, and we're here to talk about the poetry of grammar in the opening of the Odyssey. So thank you everyone for joining us. I really appreciate your time. I was hoping what we could do is just maybe we could have you guys read a line and then talk about it. Does that seem like the best approach?
Yes.
Sort of like in a Greek class, yes? Or do you have another plan?
That sounds great.
Well, you're looking at me. You want me to start?
Yeah. Can you start, Letty?
Yes. Letty, why don't you start with the first line?
ἀνδρα αίννεπε μοῦσα πολλύτροπον πολλα.
But Lenny, that's not a complete sentence.
No. Claudia. ଈδεν πτολίethron ἐπεrsεν.
So what do you do with that?
That is not a complete cool, right?
Sentence, yes.
Yes.
Well, it's a complete line.
It's a complete line, but it stops in the middle. It's a disruptive kind of enjambment, right? Mm-hmm. Which isn't that common.
And do most people out there know what an enjambment is?
Well, yeah. Let's assume not. Can we do that in a minute?
It's like a straddling. So it's like
when you get on a horse.
It's like a situation where you expect a rhythmical and even melodic unit to give you a complete thought before you go on to the next one. But here, the complete word of the next line.
Which is the verb.
Without that, you don't really have a complete thought.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Can I pause 1 second? Allie, the quality of the stream that I'm seeing is so low. Could you do me a favor? Can you check the live stream and see how it's looking in the live stream on Google Hangouts? Thanks. So let's just keep talking though, assuming that we're getting a nice thing, and I'll edit out this pause. Okay.
Okay.
So we still have the audio, so we can keep talking about this spilling over of a thought unit from one line to the next.
But it's different from the way the thought spills over in the second line of Iliad, where you do have a complete thought.
Yeah.
Add something on.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Lenny, do you want to translate this in a philological way?
Well, will you revise my translation? Speak news of the man who really, in a lot of ways, or something like that, was made to veer off course. Right? In
very many ways.
Yes, and then in very many ways, polύτροπον.
Yeah.
So there's two examples of the word polous in the first line, right?
Already.
Yeah.
There'll be more.
There are more coming. Yeah.
And the one thing that I would question, not quibble with, just question, is tell about the man.
Okay.
In a way, to tell the man, in other words, tell the subject, and you're the expert on that, because there's something similar happening in the Iliad.
It's the story of the man, right? It's not a narrative. It's a sentence. It's a sentence about a narrative, right?
Yeah, and I think that's very important.
Yeah.
Repeat the last part.
So for example, the first line of the Iliad says, "Sing of the maiden." But the maiden is the song, right?
Right.
It's not the subject. It's not the object of the sentence. Anger. Okay. It's really the story about his anger.
Right.
Right.
Sing the story of the anger.
Yeah.
Right. Well, isn't it the same as sing the story of the man?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I think we point out.
And the only reason I was thinking about that, because let's say if you were talking about remembering something or somebody, if you say reminisce about somebody, it's not really capturing who that somebody is in that somebody's totality, and that's why in ancient Greek there's this need to a form of grammar which experts call accusative, a direct object where, let's say you have a total recalling of something, so a telling of the complete story. So I'm just interested in the completion of that, that's all. And
Yeah, ask a question at this point, moving on to the next word.
yes.
Comparing the Iliad and the Odyssey, where Iliad is ædē, and єννέπε is the word hear. And you translate this to say, as opposed to sing, right? Or
speak. I said speak.
You said speak.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. But any significance to that, or not really?
Oh, I think you're right. There is a significance, and I remember once using a $10 word, iconic skewing, for this kind of thing, where we know that in the 5th century, or even in the 6th century, the way the Iliad and the Odyssey are performed is not by singing, but by reciting. So technically, this is a recitation, not a singing, but the poem can still refer to itself as singing, even though it's no longer singing at the time of performance, as best we can reconstruct it.
Well, I think that makes perfect sense. I mean, the singing versus speaking. I'm just wondering why use one for one poem and the other for the other poem. That's where I'm not sure there's any real significance.
No, I think they're in free variation. They're now synonyms.
Right, but єννέπε is a really restricted word for speak. In other words, you don't use it if somebody's saying.
Well, it's not just any kind of speak, it's a very special kind of speaking.
Speaking poetry.
Well, can you talk a little bit about that? What makes it special?
It's just restricted to that.
Yes, you don't find a lot of cons.
It's day speaking.
It's this kind of speaking, right?
Only in poetry.
Yeah.
Only in poetry, but even in poetry, I'm having trouble coming up with examples in my mind. But
well, there are hymns that begin with where the
єννέπε.
muse is єννέπε.
Okay.
Yeah.
In Latin, it's
*insecca*, which is looks like a cognate.
Yes.
Right, and there's a word that you won't find
anywhere else.
Yes, and what Doug said about this innocent Latin word happened to be the way the first line of the Odyssey is translated into arguably the oldest form of Latin that we have surviving.
Livius
Andronicus, yeah.
Right.
Okay, wait, can you just say it again? What is the word in Latin, Doug?
Insecca, I-N-S-E-C-E, I think.
Yeah.
And cognate is cognate with, I believe, with єнνέπе.
So this is a part of a proud old tradition of how you talk about heroes and the heroic past and their relations with the gods. But Lenny, what about polύtροπον? You were being very cautious.
Well, I think it's a word that only occurs, what, 2 others?
Once, only one other time.
Once, okay. But it's in the hymn to Hermes, right?
There, it's all over the place.
It's only once, I think, in the hymn to Hermes.
I swear to you,
Is
it's lots of times in hymn to Hermes, but only one more time in the Odyssey.
It's when Hermes goes to visit Circe.
Calypso.
Okay. Do you mind if we shall we quarrel here? No, it's the Circe episode.
Yes, I said Circe first, and then I got confused. Yes.
And the trouble is, in Game of Thrones, there's this very interesting character whose name is pronounced Circe, but it's spelled differently. No connection. But anyway, just to. Instead of our quarreling with each other about details, and I'm the one who started the fight. No. But the thing is that in the Odyssey, when Odysseus finally outwits the beautiful witch Circe, and she's starting to fall in love with him, she asks him, "Are you by any chance Odysseus, polύtροπος, about whom Hermes has told me so much?" And then you go to the hymn to Hermes, and Hermes, the shapeshifter, the multiform god, is consistently called polύτροπος. But Lenny, about the translation,
yes.
How did you translate it again?
I can't remember, but who does a lot of, who turns and twists a lot.
Yeah, but another thing is in English slang, well, not just slang, in colloquial English, I can say that I'm turning in a werewolf. Mm-hmm. If I'm Larry Talbot. Mm. And then there's this interesting word in Latin, which is the word for werewolf is versipelis, which means he whose skin has turned. And that means that somebody is able to have completely different exterior from one situation to another situation. So he's we would say many-sided. Mm-hmm. Okay. But in a way, it's much deeper. It's having many identities. He can turn into many different characters. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and tropos is a word that's used for, well, what's the word I want? Well, I think I'm not going to come up with it, but these are, what am I trying to say? A tropos is a way of, it's a way. A way of being, a way of this, of that. So polύtropos is somebody who has a lot of different facets and so on. But there's another way you can understand this epithet, which doesn't have to do with its being, something which the Odysseus in this case has, which is all these different facets.
I like facet,
But instead, it's somebody who, in this case, Odysseus is the passive subject of what it is to trepo, to turn. He's been turned.
Yeah. But in a sense, plάγχθη is even a gloss on polύtropon.
In that sense, exactly. So
plάγχθη, translate it.
Was made to veer off course.
Veer off course, and so somebody who was made to turn in a lot of different directions.
So I just looked at it.
Here's the story.
Right.
No, but I was wrong. I was wrong that in the Homeric hymn to Hermes it occurs only once. So I was wrong there.
No, it does occur twice. In 439 and so it's not all over.
Yeah. Oh, okay, all right. So hey, I was right twice. This is great.
So it's twice.
Sure, Lenny?
Line 13.
I see line 13.
Contact again at the paida polύtropon line.
Yeah. Okay.
Line 439. No, boy. So the ėpė polύtrope.
Well, what do you know? Okay, there it is. Okay, so I guess I was right twice. Yay!
Okay, can I just share for people who might be following along by video that what you're doing is you're doing a word search, and there are lots of ways for other people to do that too. Okay, they could use a website called Perseus, right? If you go to www.perseus.tufts.edu, and there are some other sites as well. Chicago. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, but we leave those others off, I think, dear Claudia, or do we?
Okay, so and if people want to learn about how to do those word searches, we have tutorials on doing that on the Hour 25 website. So if you want to learn how to use these tools, everyone can learn to do it, okay? So you too can look to see where words occur in Homer and other places. Okay, sorry, please go ahead.
Oh, this is great.
Yeah.
So we're talking about plάγχθη. So do we want to get to line 2?
What's very funny is that there was a famous professor that I think was taught. Did Jaeger teach you, Doug?
No, he retired the year before I started.
You just missed it. He was famous for it, doing 2 hours on let's say 1 or 2 lines of Greek poetry. So we better speed up here.
Well, I mean, if you're going to spend time on anything, right? The opening lines of the Iliad and the Odyssey are pretty good.
12 lines.
12 lines.
Speech.
That's worth it. Yeah, sure. Okay, so Claudia,
so line 2.
Push ahead.
So, Greg, would you like to read line 2 and take us into line 2?
Okay, but I think we have to do line 1 again. So, ἀνδρα μου ἔννεπε μοῦσα πολλύτροπον μάλα πολλά. Line 2. ἐπεὶ Τροίης ἱερὸν πτολίεθρον ἐπεrsεν. And I think what I'd like to talk about is the ἐπεὶ, which is sometimes translated as when, or times after.
It could be
or once.
Yeah.
Thank you. And the idea is that he started into this veering pattern, is zigzagging, after he destroyed the sacred citadel of Troy. And I think when you read this for the first time, your first impression is, why is Troy sacred? And I'm not even sure that the three Homer experts here will agree on why Troy is sacred, but one idea would be, is this is already showing that Odysseus did something that was wrong. You don't just destroy sacred cities. And it turns out, this is very complicated, that Athena, the goddess who is in most situations favorable to Odysseus, is in other situations hands-off. And something that's never mentioned directly in either the Homeric Iliad or Odyssey, Odysseus did steal with Diomedes, and Doug knows a lot about that, an archaic, that means a very old, statue of Athena from Troy, from the citadel of Troy. So maybe he's doing something that is in some way wrong. But let's not get stuck there.
Shall we debate that?
Yeah, let's debate it. Yes, let's debate it. Let's go for it.
I'm a big defender of Odysseus against these snipings. But anyway, what I'd like to, I take that you know, that it's interesting, the sacred citadel that he and it was the Palladium. That's the statues, but it had to be stolen because as long as it remained in Troy's possession, Troy was invincible. But once it had been stolen, it meant that the protection of Athena was also removed. So that's the point of stealing it.
Totally agree.
And what I was going to comment on in this line is the last word. ἐπεὶ.
Oh, yes.
Because now, why does Odysseus get the entire credit for destroying Troy?
Yes.
Well, it's his poem.
Well, later on, there's that in the story of the Cyclops, right?
Yes.
When the Cyclops asks him and his men who they are, he says, "We are we are part of the nôon of the Achaeans, and he gives Agamemnon credit for sacking the city, right?
He does.
It's
That's
his
right.
Kleos. Agamemnon gets credit for having Kleos and for having sacked the city. He doesn't take it himself, right?
No, and which is good on his part, good move.
It doesn't identify.
And also confer this on him, not for him to claim it himself. I mean, this would be unheroic.
Right.
So there is an epithet that goes with Odysseus, which is exactly sacker of cities, tolíporthos.
Yeah.
He does get the credit for sacking Troy.
Yes.
And does everybody know why? We don't have anybody to ask here. But
Allie, we're going to ask you.
Why does he get the credit?
What did he do? What did he do?
That's
it.
Very good.
Sorry, I should say that. Trojan horses.
And Ellie, speak up. Yes.
Yeah, I know. I was just going to say, can you say it a little louder?
It was the horse, of course.
Of course, nice. Well said.
And this also distinguishes the two heroes in the two poems, Achilles and Odysseus, which the Odyssey goes into at a certain point.
Very.
We're not there yet, right, in discussing the Odyssey, but there was a disagreement as to how Troy should be taken among and the phrase is the best of the Achaeans. So the best of the Achaeans If you look at the Iliad, it's Achilles. If you look at the Odyssey, it's Odysseus. Yeah. And the debate or the quarrel was between those two, and it was explicated using guile. Yeah. This was Odysseus, or using strength. Yeah, BA is the word.
Metis, right?
Or metis, yes. Yeah. So we probably talked about this already, but
this is a good segue, I think, to what could be Doug's line 3 and Doug's line 4 and Doug's line 5.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because now we're going to go from another. We're going to go from one mental word, which is metis, which is some kind of cunning intelligence or guile, as Doug says, to another mental word. And Doug, maybe you could read
just
line 3,
Yeah. So, πολλῶν ἀνθρώπων ἴδεν ἀστεα, νόον ἔγνω. So it begins with a possessive, many men. So, and the verb is iden. He saw the cities, ӓστεα, of many men, and he learned their mind. And the word for mind is noos, here in the accusative case. Yes, this is the Odyssey. The Odyssey is going to be a poem about, how to put it? I don't want to keep it fairly general at the moment, but he does meet lots of different situations. And that's the character of Odysseus, is that he gets thrown into a lot of different situations. And that has to do with his being polύτροπος, that he can handle different situations, and that he's thrown into different situations, both sides of polύτροπos. So, and he learns their minds.
Is that a fair translation of ἐγνω, learn?
It's recognized. How's that?
Or knew, right?
Or knew. Recognized, I would say, is good.
Okay.
Recognized.
I'm going to go with recognized, because I think that again is part of the Odysseus character, is that
it's an intuitive thing.
Yeah, an intuitive thing, and he doesn't. Well, this is when he gets home, in particular. He doesn't reveal much about himself, to say the least. He's in disguise. But he's evaluating everybody. Yeah.
And so, naos is key to that idea of recognition, right?
Say it again.
Naos is crucial to that ability to recognize, right, and to read signs and to.
That's his naos.
His naos is important, and here it's the he recognizes the. I would say, what's a good word for this? Only I could speak English.
Mindset? Is it something like that? Mindset?
Sorry? Mindset? Yes, exactly. It's people's character, but I don't like the word character.
What did you say, Allie?
Like, mindsets, person has different ways of thinking people.
So I think that's a good way to think about, I think that's good. A good way to think about this hero is that he doesn't tip his hand. But he watches and he evaluates and he knows, he perceives. And other people, he gets to know what's going on with that.
And so how did you translate naos?
Mind.
Mind, yeah. And I'll just tell people, because Doug is too modest to get right into this, that Doug first wrote a 300-page book about this word, and then almost a 1,000-word book about essentially this word.
1,000 page.
Yeah. Yes, and I kind of changed interpretation.
Your mind.
To the second book, but just to say something about it. There's another word that's important for us to see, and that is
line 5.
Line 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes.
Yes. Can you read 4 and 5 for us?
Okay. Πολλῶν πόντω παθενάλγεια, hon katathumon, Arnumenos haintep sukain kainoston ŷpερίονος. And I want to go on to the next line too, but I won't.
Oh, go on. Do it.
No. Yeah.
Translate all three.
Alud hos heterus eruseto, he ŷmenos there. Well, okay, let me see if I can translate this now. So we had in the line before, he saw the cities of many men, and he learned their mind, and he suffered many things on the sea, in the sea. Oh, sorry, he suffered many woes, algaea, on the sea, suffered them in his heart, his thumos. Winning back his life, psuche, soul it means, but winning back his life, and the return of his companions. And this is the word that I wanted to get to next. It's the word for return, which is nostos. And if I may, I'll just go on to the next line. But he did not save his companions thus, even though he tried, even though he wanted to do so. If I can start at the end of that,
yeah, makes sense,
and work backwards. One of the problems with Odysseus is a hero, and as a leader, he comes back from the Trojan War having lost his entire army from Ithaca. And the Odyssey has to recognize that. That's what the poem is about. It's this hero gets stripped of everything, and including his companions, and yet he makes it back home again. But he comes back without all the youths that left with 20 years before, and that's a not a good thing. This is a rap on his heroic identity. So the Odyssey at this point is addressing that issue immediately, saying that he was winning back his life, or trying to win back his life, and the return of his companions, but he didn't save his companions, even though he had to. And I would say there's also a little more than wanted to, but tried to. In the ŷmenos, ŷmai has got a certain impulse to it.
Nice.
So, so it's defending the hero right at the beginning in the proem. And then back to this other word, nostos. There's a good case to be made, I would say, for the etymology of nostos being related to the etymology of noos, that mind and return have a similar original context. And that's all I really want to say about it at the moment. I'm not going to really try to say what that is.
But that's a beautiful link, and it is vitally important to the plot of the whole Odyssey, and to what in the Da Vinci Code was called the symbology.
Oh, with a haplology.
Instead of symbology, I guess they just talked about the symbology. But seriously, the symbolism of the Odyssey cannot be understood if we don't understand the relationship of these two words, noos, which Doug translated as mind at line 3, and nostos, which Doug translated as return, line 5.
And people would usually say return home is also part of what a nostos is. That's how the word is generally used. It means return home. And it's the Odyssey. It's the story of the Odyssey, the hero's return home. Now there's in the epic cycle, there is a poem called, in the plural, The Returns, the Nostoi, and it's other heroes returning from Troy. So it's that's the context for that word, return from war, return home.
And I just have to bring up something which is modern. Don't this at home. But at line 4, as Doug read it, ἀλγεία, which means something like pains or sufferings. A modern derivative of ἀλγεία is, for example, analgesic, which is non-pain. It's a pain reliever, or there are other words having to do with ALGE, that have to do with pain. And then there was this psychiatrist who was analyzing why the Swiss guards of the Pope a couple of centuries ago were feeling so sad about living in Rome. It's because they missed Switzerland. And so he came up with a modern combination. It's just a modern combination of two ancient words. And the two ancient words are nostos, meaning homecoming, and ἀλγεία, meaning pain. And the modern word is nostalgia.
Right.
And nostalgia is strictly modern, but unintentionally it happens to correspond pretty well to what
the beginning of the Odyssey.
To what we see in the beginning of the Odyssey. I think it was unintended by this Swiss psychiatrist, but sometimes modernity has a way of reinventing a very important symbol.
Yeah. Can you say something about arnumenos hen te psychein, Doug?
No, you say it.
No.
Well, okay, it's the word psyche, right?
Right.
But also arnumenos.
And also the concept of winning it, the way you put it was winning it back, right?
Yes. Arnumenos. It's
so the psyche is one's life breath, which leaves you when you die.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So.
Yes, you're right. And so what you're getting at is that has he lost it and he needs to get it back?
But so there's a parallelism and a tight bond to be climbed between his psyche and the nous of his men, right?
Yes.
So even there's so it's his life's breath. They are nostos.
Right. Well, it could be his nostos as well. I mean, I mean, as far as that goes.
I'm so glad that Doug said that, because and I'm going to go back to line 3 and just punt and try a similar argument. But before that, could I just say that there was an argument published many years ago by somebody called E. David Francis, who argued that this verb agnumai, as in agnumenos, is the verb of the noun arete, A-R-E-T-E, which is usually translated as virtue. But the idea would be, if E. David Francis is right, that agnumai means something like struggle to win as a prize. And if you look at the other direct objects of this verb, they're very few in Homeric poetry. The objects will be, and I can't remember exactly, but things like honor, glory, song about you. So it's things that you really want to achieve, to win as a prize, as a hero. And so then you ask yourself, interesting, Odysseus is struggling to win as a prize his own breath of life. In other words, staying on survival.
Yes.
And also the nostos of his companions. But just as Doug was thinking out loud, that actually he was struggling to win as a prize also, sort of as a second prize, the homecoming of his companions. Now we go back to line 3. He saw the cities of many humans, and he, I like the way Doug said, recognized their mind, but in a way, it's also his mind.
Yes.
In a way.
Yes.
And you could argue that if there is a lot of mysticism going on here in the first 6 or so lines of the Odyssey, as we've read them for the people out there, that he's a company man who'd like to save the company. That would be to his credit. That would be to his epic glory. But this company man, this joiner, loses every one of his companions, whereas the alienated hero of the other epic, the Iliad, is alienated from everybody, but he ends up saving the lives of people. Well, either directly or indirectly through his body double, Patroclus.
In line 4, it's the hero who suffers the algae here, whereas in the beginning of the Iliad, it's the hero who causes the algae.
Right.
That's true. That's true.
So
this is that pain word.
Yes, but I think
that's absolutely true.
Reflects, but I think there's a real the portrayal of suffering is a key element of the epic text. Okay, it's not a thing. Americans aren't interested so much in suffering, but I think Greeks are, right?
Oh yeah.
So it really excites people to hear about suffering, right? You got and Totten. Right?
Yes.
Very important.
Because it's beautiful, right, Lenny? Because it's
Claudia,
beautiful.
how are we doing?
And there's something physically pleasurable about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, can I just go back to this this connection between the psyche of the hero and the homecoming of his companions? I mean, there's something really interesting about that equation that you were pointing out there. On the one hand, I mean, because later in the poem we're going to get this moment where we see that Odysseus, who's been away, I think at Circe's place, right, goes back to some of his companions that are back on the ship, and they all react when they see him alive as if they were getting home, right? It was like like a homecoming for them is sort of what the poetry insinuates. So on the one hand, those two things are so connected, almost equated, and then what Doug is pointing out is so great, which is that somehow right from the beginning, the poem is trying to separate these two things that are separate. Like we don't want to tie the class of this hero to the homecoming of these companions, otherwise we're in big trouble.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's so I do think the line really is that ten Akai is the gospel, his own psyche, and their nostos. In other words, for him, the poem is saying he was trying to do both of them at once.
Yes.
But he didn't save them. Right?
Exactly.
So the effort was there, but it was not successful, and he doesn't deserve to be blamed. That's what we're going to hear next, right? It wasn't his fault.
It wasn't his fault. And I think the just a grammatical point about the present participle arnumenos, I think you can translate that as trying to.
Yes, exactly. He did the second time.
Yeah. Trying to gain his life.
I think
it's good.
Trying to win. Yeah, I think that's great.
Trying to win his life. Yeah. Okay. Done it.
Both his life.
Both his life
and
and.
I think that's probably better, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah. Both and. Yes, it's tech guy.
Yeah.
Right. Arnumenos Hain. That's also important.
So
because it's his. Trying to win both his life and the return of his companions.
Yeah.
And as it turned out, he got the first one, but not the second one.
Yeah.
Do we want to read a few more lines today?
Yes.
Can we do just a few more? Maybe get to the end of 10?
That's a good goal.
Yeah, yes. I mean, we're going to speed up a little bit here. So if that doesn't work out, that's okay.
You keep reading.
I bet we can make it work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I do one more?
Yeah. Well, you should do all of them through 10. Read the whole bit and translate it, and then we'll slug it out.
They're hard words to translate in this, but anyway, we'll get the gist of it anyway. So aŭtôn gar sphetereisen atasthaliesen alonto nepioi hoi katabus Hyperíonos �ελίοιο aitheion. Maybe we'll just take that much. Okay.
Aitheion is like the plagkhthη.
Yeah.
It's another enjambment.
Right. So now, so he tried to save the companions, and now we find out more about the companions. that it was their fault, not his, and the first word is aŭtῶν, of them, right? And the next word is explaining, means for, aŭtῶν gar. And then, these words are a little tricky, but they perished, the last word in the line, olonto, and then the two big words in the middle, because of or by their own, atasthalie in the plural, is recklessness is the word that sort of I got associated with that noun when I was very young, so I never got beyond it, but there are probably better ways to do it than recklessness.
Isn't it because it's a plural of an abstract noun? Isn't it going to be deeds of recklessness?
Deeds of recklessness.
Concrete, right?
Deeds of recklessness sounds good. Yeah. And reckless, we think as recklessly, and in a sense that's okay. But think of it more in the terms of what the English really means. Rec has to do with thought.
Made intellectual errors.
Intellectual errors.
Yes.
And then the next word, I'm going to leave to somebody else to translate because it's a difficult one. But napioi, it means it's not a compliment. It is. They are. Greg, how would you do napioi?
Well, I'll do it in colloquial English first. Clueless.
Clueless. Okay.
But something that would be more accurate etymologically would be something like
connected.
Okay.
Yeah, from your ancestral values.
Yes.
And now, even before we go on, because it identifies exactly where they went wrong, but before we get to that, this is really important because these are mental failings.
Yes.
On the part of the companions.
Yes.
And that's where we come back to the hero has. He has both the nostos and he has noos.
Right.
Odysseus is the smart one, or he has the enlightenment from going through all these experiences that he does. So that's the contrast here. Just carrying on the contrast of in the line that we talked about, starting with winning his life, trying to win his life, and so on. So then the next part is what they did wrong, concretely. And this is where, not all the companions die at the same time. It's kind of spread out through the adventures of, in books 9 through 12 of the Odyssey, that you lose a few here and a few there.
And a huge number at one place in the Laestrygonians.
Exactly. One ship is left half Laestrygonian, and it's not that big an episode, really, but it really cuts things down. And anyway, the ones that are still left are all destroyed when they eat the cattle of the sun. This is the next line. Napioi, clueless, who, relative clause here, ate down, kata istheon, the cattle of Helios, I guess the son of, well, it's Hyperion. The one
who.
Yeah, I know.
It's an epithet more than a name, right?
But it is a name too. It's
it's a name.
And it's not a patronymic, but it's well, I'm not sure what it is.
Hyperion is the way.
Well, let's just leave it as the same as in Greek. Yeah. Who ate the cattle of Hyperion Helios.
Yep.
And so, here, I didn't read this line yet. I did the first word, aestheon, they ate. And then there's a stop. And then it goes, aŭtǎr hotois and apheilito nostimon eimar. And he, Hyperion, took away their day of return. And there's that word nostos again, this time in an adjective used with day. So Amar is day, nostimon amar is day of nostos. He took away their day of return. There.
And we got just one more line left.
But somebody, do I have to do that one too?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Ton hamothengetheia tugater dios epakaihemi. So, goddess, that's Thea, the fourth word, daughter of Zeus, and now a goddess, daughter of Zeus means Zeus in this context, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ton hamothenge means starting somewhere or other in these matters. Ton at the beginning. Tell us about them too. Epakaihemi. Is that? Am I going to get away with that as a translation?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. So in other words, this is, it's a little different. Now that I'm just thinking about the contrast with the Iliad, where it's very specific.
What the starting point is.
Here it's more geographically diffuse, or
it's almost like it doesn't matter, but it does matter.
It does matter. Oh yes.
It does matter a lot, but it's from one point. And if you can imagine a traditional singer of tales, who is surrounded by an audience who's going to listen to the tale, and can you just hear somebody like that saying, "Let me see, where should I start? Where should I start? Where should I start?
That's it.
I'm going to start here." And instead here, so the point where I start, I'll start from one point.
Yes.
And Goddess, you tell even us.
Yes.
And some people are driven crazy by the fact that instead of saying "tell me," it's "tell us" as well. And in ancient Greek, it's much messier what the difference is between I and we, or
if we would go back,
us.
If we can go back to the first line, it is
there. It's me.
Moi,
It's ӓνδρα moi, and if that tell me, but now it's me and the audience.
Yes, it could be. It could be. Me and me as the successor to all the previous people who have told the story.
That's what Kai implies, that this is not the first time.
It's not unambiguous.
No.
Yes, and also, there is a very definite starting point. I mean, there's so much structure, especially in the first half of the Odyssey, that it's all very well planned out. So this line, it may sound this way, I think gives credit. It's trying to say that the muse is the one that's going to organize.
That's right. And then the next word pins it down. Enta. In the original Greek, enta means at this point.
Yeah.
A questo punto.
That's it. Oh.
That's beautiful.
That's
beautiful. Maybe at this point it's a point, where we just passed the hour mark, so we should probably pause here, and then that's where we can pick up next time, which is perfect.
And we stop.
Exactly. So thank you so much, everyone, for your time today and for reading these lines with us. It was a really beautiful experience, and I look forward to reading more home with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And everybody?